not obligated to pay anything to anyone.
That's correct.
I think I'm kind of leaning towards a compromise where maybe we pay the bills that we currently have outstanding, and then we ask the sheriff to negotiate a new agreement at the lower rate. I'll throw that out as a starting point.
Supervisor Brown?
Yes, I also agree. The 74,000 that's owed since June, I think we have to look at. I am concerned about more detail, for instance, with a drunk driver and insurance. Who, how do we work with that?
There's actually a penal code section that says that anybody that's brought in for pre-booking medical clearance that has any form of insurance, and that includes Medi-Cal, that those expenses will be paid by the insurance first. So it's only when they have absolutely nothing that we pay for the pre-booking. And, that includes their, if they have car insurance that would cover medical, that would be included.
Supervisor Colfax?
Well, I think here it's pretty obvious that all the parties involved are serious and wanting to cooperate in the best way possible. We just cannot allow a court ruling to allow us to simply cut off the hospitals. I think here the fact that they're being as open and agreeable as they are is to be commended. And I think the sheriff's awareness and appreciation for the importance of having that sense of cooperation and on the job trust that's necessary. I would hate to see where physicians are expected to deal with people who are about to be arrested but are simply being kept in a particular category so that we don't have to pay the bills. That's a little bit frightening. But I think here that we need to direct our sheriff to meet with, or recommend to the sheriff that he meets with our CEO and with the people involved and work out an agreement, and we'll find the funds to be able to cover it, whether in your budget or whether in some other category. But again, this is to echo Supervisor Smith's concern. There's another case where we're passing on the cost to somebody out there further down the line, and the county has an obligation to recognize that the hospitals are part of our community as well. Their survival and their existence in Mendocino County is something we really have to do our small part in preserving.
Norm, I got a question. What is budgeted in this fiscal year 08-09 for these services? Because you said that you're projecting these costs to be about, in this year, $165,000. Is that within your budget, amount?
That amount is not in the budget, and I don't have the exact amount that's in the budget, but my guess is it's in the neighborhood of $120,000.
Okay, because one of the problems I have here, and it looks like it's projecting to be about a 30% increase in the next year fiscal year. We've made no bones about telling the sheriff and every other department to operate within your budget, and now for us to say, well, it's okay to go over your budget here, that creates a problem in itself, and the sheriff is looking for clear direction here. But I'm concerned about having a 30% increase on this cost next year. Somehow we've got to get a handle on that. We're talking about all general fund dollars here. We're not going to get reimbursed for these funds from the state or the feds or anybody else. So I think we need to protect our sheriff here. This board cannot tell the sheriff we'll go work with him and then, hey, sheriff, don't overrun your budget, because that's probably what what will happen here. So we're going to have to come up with an agreement with some sort of to where the sheriff knows, of how much, if this board is willing to overrun the budget or not on this line item. Because is this carried as a line item in your budget?
We have a line item for medical costs, but the CFMG contract is in the same line item.
Okay.
So this is a smaller portion of the total.
you understand my concerns about overrunning your budget on this line item?
I
And
do,
especially
yeah.
next year, it looks like your projections are saying it's probably gonna be about a 30% overrun. So that's something we need to keep in mind here with this. Jennifer, go ahead.
If I could just say one thing. You know, we are going to have our mid-year report in February, and that would be the time for us to look at the sheriff's budget and look at those particular line items. So at this particular time, I would recommend to the board not to, not focus on a line item, because there's medical cost, and as Norm stated, for the CFMG contract that, it may not be the total amount that's budgeted for that. There's other savings that they may have and other line items that may offset this cost. So we need to look at that budget overall, when we review it for the mid-year and as third quarter comes along as well. Or we could look at it as the board desires at any time.
Thank you. We're talking about basically the funding for 2 deputies' positions too, in the same amount of dollars. So Supervisor Brown?
Yes, I think it's important that negotiations start as soon as possible. We can't wait. We're up against the wall on a lot of budget issues. And I would like to ask, did I hear that the ER in Ukiah, the doctors bill at 75% and not the 35% that is an agreement with the hospitals and the other ERs?
That's the rate that we pay them on their billings, yes. And when they separated from the hospital billings, we negotiated separately with them, and that's the rate that we arrived at.
Some of them are combined with the doctor bills and some of them not. That's why there's a difference in percentage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, to move this along, John, go ahead.
Well, I wonder if we could be more selective on who currently goes to the hospital, or maybe you should enlighten me a little, because are we just taking people there who have an obvious injury, or are there other cases where we do route them through the hospital? Because once they do get to the jail, we have our own medical staff. So
We do. Supervisor McCowan, when an inmate is brought into the hospital, they're asked a series of medical questions. If the answers to those questions allow our medical staff at the jail to take care of that medical issue, then it's taken care of at no additional cost. But if there's other situations, a heart situation, respiratory situation, and so forth, before they're actually accepted in the jail, the medical staff in the jail will say they need to have clearance from a hospital. And there's been situations where inmates have been taken to the hospital, and the hospital said, we cannot clear this person for medical clearance because of their medical need. And in that situation, we usually contact the judge and we release the inmate with a date to appear. But so it's the exception rather than the rule of why an inmate would go to the hospital. But if there is an injury that's obvious, they're going to go to the hospital and they're going to see a doctor and get a medical clearance.
But I'm going to try this without objection from any of the board members. If we could just direct because the sheriff and the CEO's office originally recommended to eliminate this reimbursement, but it's my belief that the total board members want to support a process to where the hospitals and go back and maybe, for lack of a better word, renegotiate. And it certainly shows to me the interest within the hospitals by sending their administrators here and a real willingness to work together to come up with a resolution. So if we could just direct the CEO's office, the sheriff, and the hospital administrators to get together and come back with some sort of a definite proposal. In no way does the board relinquish their ability to ultimately, if we don't like what comes forward, to deny any backfill of the funding. I want to make that certainly clear, because I'm not speaking for my rest of my colleagues out here. But I think let's just give it another chance and get together. If we can just make that board direction to get everybody together and say, if you could come back, say within a 90-day period with a recommendation, or sooner if possible.
I don't know why it couldn't come back in 30 days, and